Hello, I'm Dr. Roger Elmer, Advanced Neurospinal Solutions, and we are going to discuss what we do here at Advanced Neurospinal Solutions. People ask me, even my own patients, they see a lot of things happening. There's a lot of excitement in the office, things that often are called miracles. They're not really miracles. Miracles are things that you can't explain. These are explainable by the principles behind the things that we do here. But I want to discuss it in a more broad point of view. I just did a video on structural correction, which is the pedibond side of what we do, putting the structure back together. And during that time, I drew a triangle and made it into a pyramid. I use this model not only to describe structural correction, but to describe what we do here, which is beyond the structural correction itself. So we'll draw this pyramid. And you'll remember that in structural correction, this corner was white tissue, this corner was red tissue, and this corner was neural tissue. And those were the three tissues that we had to change in order for the structure to be maintainable by the patient after we're done. And that those were the soft tissues that had to change. That it's not the bones, it's the soft tissues that are having the problem, for whatever reason, whether they weren't formed correctly via the crawling process or whether they're through bad postural positions, injuries from the past, whatever. And it really doesn't matter to us. We're here to put that system back together again. If there are injuries from the past that have created sloppiness within the system, created scar tissue that we didn't have, limited range of motion, we're here to put all of that system back together again, to put the structure back together again, to get it to function the way it's supposed to. And that means putting it back together not only so that it looks pretty on the x-ray, but that it functions correctly against gravity in everything that you would tend to ask it to do. At the end of the day, it's about the function here. We want that function to be back and restored. So, and even many times we take patients way beyond what they were able to do before. When we get multiple failed back surgeries and people off of work, which is what I made my initial reputation on, putting those people back together again so that they can function in life, not just not be in pain or have a minimum of pain, but to be able to do stuff that they may not have been able to do in the first place. Being able to do athletic experiences and events, and that's where we live. So, but let's talk about beyond structural correction, because with respect to structural correction, that is the foundation of what we do here. But I'm also a board certified functional neurologist, a chiropractic neurologist. And so we add that, plus we do things relating to nutrition and functional medicine. And the best way to describe this is to use that pyramid once again. And here we'll put structural correction, functional neurology, and functional medicine and nutrition. This is a model of what we do here. Structural correction is the foundation of everything we do, because the structure dictates the functions that you're able to do. But those functions actually drive the brain, the neurological side of things. They drive the involuntary system and create the foundation of the activity level or the neural drive within your brain. When you wake up in the morning, this structure has been laying down and therefore not feeding lots of information to your brain. And you stand up, you can't think, you can't smell, you can't taste, you can't do anything, and you stand up and gravity pulls down on your structure, and as it pulls down on your structure, that structure stretches muscle fibers, which within them they have what's called muscle spindle fibers. They send massive amounts of information up to the brain. Up on the right side, it sends it to the right cerebellum, which feeds over to the left cortex, and the left cerebellum receives information from the left side of your body and feeds it over to the right frontal lobe, or the right cortex. So that turns your brain on. You notice when you can't wake up, you can't think, and then you stand up and you start moving, and then pretty soon you're awake. Well, it's because you've activated those muscle stretch receptors, which has now turned on the brain and changed the reticular activating system between the pons and the medulla, which causes you to be either in a sleep or in awake. And it shouldn't be in between. That's that state we call drowsiness, and that is wrong. It shouldn't happen. It should be more like a teeter-totter, that on one side, if we are asleep, we are asleep and we're not awake. If we are awake, we are awake and not asleep. And halfway in between is a problem, and it's going to create radical problems in the future for that individual. Well, we put that structure back together again so that it feeds the information to the brain the way it's supposed to, the way it was intended, the way God created it to. With the curve system in, which we talked about in structural correction, and we'll spend more time when we talk about biomechanics, how that system feeds front to back, side to side. And we have a symmetry of activity that's not only driving the cerebellum, but driving symmetrically the cortex, causing it to function equally side to side. That's the structural correction side. That drives the brain. The functional neurological side, the brain gets driven by the body, and it creates all the functions, or causes all the functions that happen within your body. All the health, all the energy, the strength, the youthfulness, all the coordination of activities, whether it be movement or whether it be thought, or whether it be support of any of those functions. And so functional neurology is where we actually work with the nervous system directly. In structural correction, we're putting that structure back together again so that it will be as close to perfection as possible, and rewire the nervous system to run the involuntary musculature system, and to wire the support system, which is the reticular system, which feeds the blood flow and the digestion and recovery systems and all that. So in functional neurology, we can actually work directly with the brain, with issues relating to the brain. We do a lot of work with stroke, brain injuries, autism, and MS, post-polio, lots of different kinds of issues. Can we bring all of these patients right back to perfect? No, we're not saying that. We're actually helping that system function optimally within the sphere of its existence. Oftentimes we have been told that there are certain things that just are. I had a patient with a brain injury, was kicked for over 20 minutes as a prison guard, and he lost the vision in his left eye. He had severe PTSD. He had difficulty with his emotions. He had severe challenges with walking, and that he couldn't drive. He couldn't work, and having lost the vision in his left eye, we started working with that eye on the first day, and within just that day he could tell that there was something different about his eye and his vision. He couldn't see, it was still dark, but within just a matter of a couple of 3 days he was actually seeing light, and within a month he had his vision back, but it was blurry on that side. And that now we didn't do a miracle, we just had the audacity of stimulating that and seeing what will happen. I have another patient who has Parkinson's, and in Parkinson's you have proteins that tend to gather into different areas of the nervous system, including the olfactory bulbs, and it's not uncommon for them to lose their sense of smell. Well, he had lost his sense of smell, and I was using sense of smell not because of that, but I wanted to drive the nervous system and into the temporal area, temporal lobe, for other reasons. And so he was smelling on one side compared to the other, and particularly he wasn't smelling anything. And then about a month and a half into it, he said, "You know, I think I smell that." I said, "Well, what does it smell like?" And he thought a minute, and he said, "That smells like peppermint." I said, "You're absolutely right." Well, the next time he was in, I changed the fragrance, and immediately he said, "Well, that's orange." Well, we never would have known if he could that he could get that back had we not been stimulating that track. And by stimulating that track, we were able to get it back for him. It's not a miracle. It's just basic physiology. We're running the tracks, stimulating those nerves to get them to function. The other thing that we incorporate is the nutritional support relating to that, helping people understand the basic concepts of the 3 basic food groups. Remember the 4 basic? What a joke that was, right? Even the pyramid is kind of a pyramid scheme. But there are 3, biochemically, there are 3 basic foods: carbs, fats, and proteins. And particularly with respect to the nervous system, you got to have all 3. One of the ones that we focus heavily on is protein, because whenever you fire a nerve, whenever you have to fire the nervous system to hold yourself up, you go through a process called immediate early gene response. And when that happens, you need protein to make more protein. I call immediate early gene response cellular housekeeping. When stuff goes bad within the cell, which is kind of like a big, huge city, tiny little city, but if you were a microbe, or if you were a molecule inside of it, it would look big to you. But imagine if you're inside there and stuff starts going bad, you got to replace it. You got to replace the mitochondria that actually make, they're the powerhouses of the cell, they actually make energy. And so you got to replace it in real time, but we got to have protein in order to make protein. And so we focus on the nutritional side to make sure that those are always there. The nerve needs 3 things in order to survive, much less thrive. Number 1 is oxygen. Number 2, carbs, sugar. And they can only operate on that. And then number 3, I can hear some of you neurologists out there saying, no, it can operate on other stuff. Yeah, okay, yeah, but it's a little bit more rare. Okay, we'll get into ketone bodies later, but this isn't a neuro class actually. So, but the number 3, we got to have activation. If you don't activate the cell, if you don't use it, what's the phrase? Ha! You lose it. That's right. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so the more you don't use a cell, the more it begins to die, because you're not upkeeping. You're not replacing stuff. It's starting to fall apart. The cell is literally starting to fall apart. It's imploding on itself, and then later it will start taking up water because it can't maintain the gradients, and it will explode. And we call that process that we talk often, and you've heard it many times, especially on luminosity. You know, they talk about neuroplasticity as though they invented it. If you get up in the morning and are awake and alive and alert, you're during neuroplasticity. And that if you read a book, or go to a dance class or whatever, you're doing neuroplasticity. The dark side of neuroplasticity is called transneural degeneration. And that is where, because of the lack of activity of that cell, it's starting to break down. It's not being replaced. Stuff is not being handled. And so the cellular housekeeping isn't happening. My job is to find those processes and to get them functioning the way they're supposed to without killing them. And that's the biggest thing, right? In neurology, we want to get them going and drive them, but the more important part is knowing when to stop. Because frankly, you can overdo it. You can beat the system up, you can beat the cells up to the point where they die. So stopping at the end of what we call metabolic capability or metabolic capacity is the most important thing to know. And we not only do it here, we teach patients how to do that for themselves when they do their home exercises. So this is the model of what we do here at Advanced Neurospinal Solutions. We incorporate all of these approaches. In functional medicine, we have plenty of patients who come in here who already have had not only a degradation of the system, the structure, for so long, and it's degraded the brain for so long, that it's degraded the neuroendocrine and neuroimmune systems to the point where they now have severe hormonal issues and autoimmune disorder. That autoimmune disorder, we work with functional medicine. Those endocrine problems we work with functional medicine approaches. Approaches that are meant to support and to encourage the system to do its own work. And so we're not just trying to throw hormones at the person, though during the process it's not a bad thing to get some hormonal support. But our goal is to get the patient as far as we can off those supports and medications, but to support them with things like botanicals that won't create any issues over time. And so that's the approach that we take. And so the functional medicine side includes those parts of functional medicine that support the neuroendocrine and neuroimmune systems and encourage the neuroendocrine and neuroimmune systems to do it on their own as far as it can. Many patients were able to get off of those kind of supports. Some were able to get it to a bare minimum, and that's our goal, is to do whatever to bring that person's life into as much of a balance as possible and strength as possible with a minimum amount of support. Thank you very much. That's what we do here at Advanced Neurospinal Solutions. A little bit difficult to say in 1 or 2 sentences, but this video, if you have any other questions, please ask. We'll do another video. Thanks. Bye.